Welcome to Cloud.Nine on ACTN, the voice. Sometimes it's just good to kind of tone things down a bit. We get so crazy and caught up in everything that's happening all around us, and we just don't take a moment just to rock back and exhale. And the funny thing is, we get so caught up in our emotions and trying to do this and that and the other, and we end up tripping over these sad emotions and falling on our face, and we didn't even know how to pick ourselves back up at times. So it's just good to just sit down, have a moment, and just say, you know what, God, take control. Be still. I know He's God. This is Cloud.Nine on this Think It Through Thursday, and there's a lot to think about in Trinidad and Tobago. And I know one thing on the mind of many, many people in Trinidad and Tobago, particularly if you are a member of the public service, is who shall I vote for? Yes. Well, you know we're going with that. It's coming up very soon, the new executive, or the voting of the new executive of the Public Services Association, and that has been a contentious issue for many years, many years. And now we have Mr. Watson Duke. This issue with him being the minority leader of the THA and holding his position as president, it has raised even more eyebrows, eyelashes, eyeball, yeah, raise red eyes, because they're wondering, how is that happening? Why is no one speaking? But there are those who are speaking out, and on the heels of this election, which will be called very soon, the different leaders of the various entities, those parties that are going up against Mr. Duke, they have been making their rounds in the media. And on Monday, Mr. Oral Sanders, the leader of the UPO, United Public Officers, he will be joining us on the program on Monday. Look out for that, and you can throw your comments at him and your questions. But just for briefly today, coming up in just a short while, we're going to have him on the phone to talk about, you know, his concerns where the PSA is going. I know Mr. Callender was on a radio program this morning, and people threw some serious boulders at him. But for the most part, he was able to answer them. Some, you know, he took on, some he dodged, some hit him on the big toe. But nevertheless, he responded, whether it was by speaking out boldly or, ow, I can't answer that one right now because the boulder hit his big toe. So, all right. So we're going to deal with that later on during the Wise Up segment with Mr. Oral Saunders. But first, I want to go to these pictures right now that have been circulating all over social media, and it's about an ammunition find in Barbados. It seems as though these images that you're seeing here, now this is, of course, if you've seen clearly, is a car engine, and it was intercepted in Barbados. It left where? Well, it's Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, it left Trinidad and was intercepted in Barbados. Not sure if it was meant for Barbados or en route to another country. Possibly, it would have been a transshipment point to another country. So this is just one image. Go to the other image again. So you're seeing, of course, the ammunition in the engine itself. Next picture. All right. Oh, okay. So, but basically there are 4 images we're going to get to in just a short while, but that's all we have so far coming, of course, to us at ACT and The Voice, Cloud.Nine, right? We have these story coming, right, in relation to the find, all right? So, we'll come back to that in just a short while, all right? So that's all we have so far concerning those particular that particular story. ammunition, arms and ammunition that were found intercepted rather in Barbados, which means it was en route to another country. We're not sure where. I'm not sure exactly where in Trinidad it came from, but it came from the shores of Trinidad and Tobago. We'll keep you posted on that, and you'll hear more developments, I'm sure, during the course of the day. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we have more for you right here on Cloud.Nine, including in our Wise Up segment, our interview with Mr. Oral Saunders, the leader of the UPO. We'll be right back.
The devil's the accuser of the brethren. And he hates marriage because marriage is the image of God. He hates marriage because it's the most sacred institution on earth. God created marriage in Genesis chapter 1. It is the first institution he ever created, and it's the foundation for every other institution on earth. And he's a strategist. He understands if he can destroy marriage, he can destroy all of society.
I found out that if our phones are close enough, and if we have a connection on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, come on, I'm about to preach this technology until somebody comes out of hiding. If I got something on my device and you need it on your device, if I can get close enough to your device with my device, what's on my device can jump on your device. If I get close to the one who created me, close to the one who called me, if I stop running and return to the place of my assignment, I got the drop.
So if you want to live behind walls all your life and live an isolated, lonely, miserable life, go ahead. But I suggest that you tear down all your walls and let God be a wall of protection about you. And he says all of your walls will be called peace.
Nine on ACTN, The Voice, Think It Through Thursday, and members of the PSA, members of the Public Services Association, are being called now to think it through before they cast their vote for a new executive of the now troubled, I want to say that the now troubled union. Many, you know, PSA was one of, well, still is a giant in terms of trade unions. But because of all the issues over the years, you know, people are seeing that giant as very small right now in many circles, because the controversy has really undermined, you know, a lot of what they've been trying to do. Mr. Watson Duke, he has really tried his best to keep the ship afloat, but with all the controversy, it has been very difficult for him. All right, so let's go to our Wise Up segment at this time. All right, so basically, now let me just give you a little background on what's been happening now. Mr. Oral Saunders and Mr. Watson Duke once had a very good relationship, but it has had its challenges. Now, since, you know, the split, we've seen what's been happening in terms of Mr. Watson Duke, and people have been questioning now if, you know, if the PSA has been better today or worse off under his leadership. No matter what, and I always say this, Mr. Watson Duke has a presence. And there are those who believe in his style of leadership, and there are those who have seen success under his leadership. But for some, they believe that that success has been somewhat of a mirage, of a smoke screen. It has not really produced good fruit or long-lasting fruit. You know, this morning, Mr. Callender, who was actually once very close to Mr. Duke, that actually had Mr. Oral Saunders ousted at one point in time. He, as you know now, he has his own entity that is going up against Mr. Watson Duke, but he was very careful this morning while on a radio network not to say any, well, he was very cautious in how he spoke about Mr. Watson Duke, saying, listen, at the end of the day, they have differences in terms of how the union should be managed, but he has no ill feelings towards him personally. There have been rumors, as a matter of fact, when there was the first split with Mr. Calendar and Mr. Duke, that there are those who were saying that it was deliberate in order to split the votes for the other entities. But I'll let Mr. Oral Saunders speak more on that. Mr. Saunders, a pleasant and good afternoon to you and welcome to Cloud.Nine at this time. Hello, Mr. Oral Saunders.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir. And how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, but I'm barely hearing you. I don't know if there's somewhere you can just turn up the volume, please.
I'm going to just speak a little louder. You hearing me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay.
Good afternoon to you and your viewers.
Good afternoon to you. So we're at it again, Mr. Saunders. we are at it. We've had this conversation on set, off set, on camera, off camera.
Yes.
Mr. Calendar, I want to jump at this first. Mr. Calendar was on a particular radio station this morning.
Yes.
And addressing some of the issues, particularly in terms of his relationship with Mr. Watson Duke. Yes. And as you know, he has his own, slate that is contesting the executive positions of the PSA. They asked him about the money bag issue. They asked him about, his relationship. He said, listen, I'm not going to speak ill of him. I'm going to keep it very professional. But I remember when we had the first interview, people had expressed concerns that when he, separated himself from Mr. Duke professionally, it was not personally. There were even allegations that was just a divisive plan to split votes from the other entities. Do you still believe that is the case? Do you still trust the relationship between Mr. Calendar and Mr. Duke?
Well, first and foremost, let me say a pleasant good evening, good afternoon to your viewers.
Thank you.
Because if it is one announcer who has a complete grasp of the PSA's issues spanning over 8 years, that person is Mr. Sheldon Yearwood. So I can boast about that. Answering your question, there is absolutely no doubt in the minds of conscious-minded persons who have been observing not only persons' words, but their deeds and their actions to support such, is that Mr. Calendar, we believe, continues to support Mr. Watson Duke, but they are trying to throw him in as a Trojan horse in this year's elections because their focus is primarily about keeping Mr. Watson Duke in office so that there will not be an audit of the finances of the PSA. And we say that without any challenges whatsoever. We are clear in our minds that a vote for Mr. Calendar and Team Sentinel, as well as a new fly-by-night team calling themselves, I think it's Fixers or something like that, those persons have only jumped into this race because there is a clear intent to keep Mr. Duke in office.
Let me ask a question, Mr. Saunders, if you hear me clearly still.
Sure.
You said we. And when you say we, what percentage are we talking about here? Are you saying that a large percentage of the membership and the body that represents PSA has this view as well?
Of course they do. But probably for me to give a little bit of let me shed some light on the issue, a little bit more information. The United Public Officers, this is a group that came together following the mandate of the membership of 2013. And you would recall when you were at that other place that the members, and I was the first person who spoke to you and told you that the approach by these various teams could very well mean Mr. Duke will stay in office.
Yeah, because they split, right?
You could recall that?
Yeah.
Yes. So what happened is that those members who voted in the majority against Mr. Duke because he was a minority president for the past 4 years. Meaning to say simply, there were more persons that voted against Mr. Duke as opposed to persons who would have voted for Mr. Duke. So these groups, I'm talking about the liberators, the reformers, pioneers, because the executive came out of the pioneers leadership team there. Defenders, Team Phoenix. We had to respond to the request of the membership and placing the members' interest, the public services interest at our forefront. We decided to put aside our differences, work them out, and come together so that we can, for once and for all, remove Mr. Duke from office. And that is really where the United Public Officers came from. So this is an amalgamation or a coalition, some people would prefer to call it, of several entities who would have come together because we have recognized that since the advent of Mr. Duke, every aspect of our union has been decimated. We are talking about the image of the organization is tarnished. We are talking about the finances of the organization. We are talking about the membership itself. It has decreased significantly since Mr. Duke has been there. So public officers are crying out. They have been crying out for unity amongst these persons because they want to see the back of Mr. Duke and his cohorts. And we are sure that they are going to come out and vote for one team against Mr. Duke, and that one team will be the United Public Officers. We are working to make sure that the respectability of the PSA is returned, but we want to make sure that the ownership of the organization is returned to its members, because there seems to be a disconnect in the minds of Mr. Duke and Calendar and so forth, that they think they are in control of the PSA. They are not in control of the PSA.
But despite, let me just stick up in for a second. Despite
Sure.
what, I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I do agree, because PSA, as I mentioned earlier on, they were a giant in terms of even people, how they respected them. And even though they are still alive, we have to be wary now saying the term alive and well, because we're not sure how well they are. And this is just by just public, what you're seeing, being dished out. But somehow, even amidst what's going on, Mr. Watson Duke has been able to not only, how should I say, maintain his position, and also there seems to be now, correct me if I'm wrong, a deafening silence outside of now as to some of the issues. Is it that people are afraid to speak out?
No, I don't think it is that at all. I just think you need to understand the PSA is a microcosm of the wider society.
Right.
Persons may have an opinion, a negative opinion about the governance of Trinidad and Tobago, but our country is not an activist type of society that you will see people in the streets every week complaining about issues.
Okay.
What we do as a society is that we note certain discretions, and when the time for voting comes around, we vote out those persons. And that is the history of Trinidad and Tobago.
So that's what you're expecting to happen this round here?
Exactly, because what happened prior to that is that we would have won over 17 cases against Watson Duke in his misunderstanding of the Constitution. We won every case. But the court said to us, do not come to us expecting us to remove Mr. Duke. This is a membership organization, and they expect that the members will make that overture to get rid of him, to make that decision to move him. So what we are trying to do, and we continue to call persons who really would like to see a better PSA, because regardless of what persons would have thought of the former president, Mrs. Jennifer Baptiste Primus, at the end of the day, she was a respected president. The PSA, as you rightfully said, was a respected organization. We cannot say the same thing for Mr. Duke. And what has happened is that persons, knowing that the elections are around the corner, have decided to change their strategy and just simply prepare to vote him out.
Let me ask this question. Do you think the media has played a big part in feeding the ego or feeding the bowels of Mr. Watson Duke and the executive? Because, as I said, with all the controversy, Mr. Watson Duke, his leadership style, whether you like him or not, he gains media attention and he's always there, and people still gravitate to him. As a matter of fact, he's now the minority leader of the THA. So people, despite all that's being said, they gravitate towards this man. It's like a magnetic pull. Why that? Do you think the media has a part to play as well, or is there something that we're missing here?
Well, I would say to a certain extent the media, but you see, at the end of the day, the media being the fourth estate in the country will always do what it is supposed to do. I see it slightly differently from your perception. I see it as Mr. Duke is a clown. And a clown does things to attention.
I'm
just simply saying, and I mean no disrespect. That's really.
I know. Go ahead.
All right. Let me rephrase that. They see him as a comical individual.
All right.
And you see, with a comical, this society has never had to deal with someone in authority that is very comical.
So he makes for good entertainment.
Exactly.
All right,
and
okay.
entertainment sells ratings. So the media will follow him because they know what they say. The reporters, they will see what Mr. Duke going to do next.
Oh my goodness.
So they will normally follow him because it's just, and they laugh after, that is sad thing. I mean, if you look at one of those satire shows on a Monday, I wouldn't call the name of the station. They have even invented a new term called a Duke-tionary, because he's so known for inventing words that God alone knows what are the meanings. They call it a Duke-tionary. So I am saying that this is just the perception, and it's sad because at the end of the day, this is how people perceive public officers. Because they say, if this is the person you all have in office, well, then you all have to be jokers as well.
Right.
And I know for a fact that many public officers are not jokers. It is simply that the leaders of those various parties did not get it right the last time. And thank God, persons would have had to sacrifice a lot for us to come together. Persons would have sacrificed their personal desires and positions that they would have liked to attain, all in the best interest of the public service, the PSA, and by extension Trinidad and Tobago, because we hold firm to the view that this is not good enough. We believe as a society we can do better for our leaders. And it's not that we are boasting that we think we are without sin, but at least what we are saying is that a united group of persons coming together is exactly what the spirit of trade unionism is about. That is what solidarity is. We cannot wait until we get into office to try to talk about solidarity. We have decided that, listen, the membership and the organization called the Public Services Association, that must be at the forefront of our desires. Forget about self. Deny yourself in this instance. Let us put the needs of the members ahead of ourselves. So we have come together under the United Public Officers to rebuild the institution called the Public Services Association. And to do that, we will. So we are saying it as simple, Mr. Sheldon Yearwood, that a vote for Team Sentinel is a vote for
Mr. Watson.
A vote for the fixers is indeed a vote for Mr. Watson Duke. And public officers need to understand that, because if you all are claiming that you do not like Mr. Duke's management, if you all are claiming that you want to see the back of Mr. Watson Duke, then why are you not part of the United Public Officers? So what you're going to say, oral is the problem? I am the least of the problem, because at the end of the day, all those other leaders chose to put aside their personal aspirations, as I said before, and do what was in the best interest of the persons and the organization called the PSA. And there's something that I would like your viewers to really understand and keep to the back of their minds. If it is you are not working to get Mr. Duke out of office, then it is clear you are doing everything within your power to get him in office, for him to stay in office. So we are very much guided by those persons, and we would like the members of the union in the first instance and by the society to look at these persons' track records. I mean, Mr. Calendar, he was seen crossing the road with Mr. Duke. We know he has several charges before the courts. I mean, you was rejected in 2013. If it is you really wanted to remove Mr. Duke, then you would never offer yourself up for president again. Because we are also saying, my brother, that when persons do not have power, if they are refusing to listen to their employer, which is the membership is saying get together. And if persons do not have power and they are not listening to the membership, do you really expect these people, when you give them power, that they will listen to the membership? Clearly they will want to do what they want, and that is exactly what we are trying to get away from. the United Public Officers, we are going to be bringing a very unique management structure to the PSA, and we are going to go towards the Constitution to even reinforce this new management structure, because for the first time we are going to have a leadership council that will be primarily responsible for controlling the president, because we believe that office, if persons doesn't have the...
There must be accountability.
They could be crazy. That power could send persons crazy. So we are going to put a leadership council, and that is what the United Public Officers are about. We are about building bridges. So we were able successfully to bring former members, persons who were former permanent secretaries to come on board with us. They have joined the United Public Officers, members from the reformers under Jennifer Batiste, the pioneers, the rebuilders, the Team Phoenix, you name it. Persons have come together. Persons who aren't even members, but they are just persons who think Trinidad and Tobago could do much better than Western do. They have come on board. And let me just remind your viewers of something. At the end of the day, the Tobago East seat has always been an opposition to the PNM. So anyone who was looking good and sounding good could have been able.
So you said anyone could have gone in there and won.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I wanna.
I'm sorry.
No, I wanna leave some. I wanna leave some stuff for Monday.
Sure.
I wanna leave some stuff for Monday. Because I have a whole lot of stuff I want to ask you again, including these different, how should I say, these meetings where they've bargained for workers and they've received increase.
Yes.
And it seems as though the man is working and everything is good. But what you're saying here, clearly there's more water or more that meets the eye from what we're seeing. So let's leave it for Monday.
Sure.
So let the public know that you would be here live on set.
Yes.
Maybe you can bring one of your members.
The only thing that I'm humbly requesting, my brother, is that I am not allowed to come alone, and that
you can bring
because this is
anyone.
not a one-man thing, and this is one of the most striking differences you always notice with this team. This team is not owned by Oral Saunders at all. Right. This is a community of persons who have come together, a coalition of persons who are in themselves champions and in themselves leaders. And we have come together. So we will come and speak to you and your viewers, your thousands of viewers, and any question they would want to put to us, we will be willing and ready to answer.
Well, I guess as you said, Mr. Duke is a man who, he's very entertaining. So we'll see who laugh the best on election day.
At the end of the day, we are doing what the members would have requested.
Yeah.
In the final analysis, it is the members to make that choice,
decision. Exactly.
They cannot blame us if
they don't see change.
Put Mr. Duke back, and we will feel no shame about it. But we know we are definitely going to be victorious because it is time for change.
Mr. Saunders, thank you very much. And always a pleasure. To see you on Monday with your team.
Yes,
all right,
thank you so kindly. Have a wonderful afternoon.
All right, Mr. Oral Saunders, they say the man is a comical nature. How you can say that about the man? The man just swim from Tobago to Trinidad. Come on. Let's take a break.
I found out that if our phones are close enough and if we have a connection on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, come on, I'm about to preach this technology until somebody comes out of hiding. If I got something on my device and you need it on your device, if I can get close enough to your device with my device, what's on my device can jump on your device. If I get close to the one who created me, close to the one who called me, if I stop running and return to the place of my assignment, I got the drop.
So if you want to live behind walls all your life and live an isolated, lonely, miserable life, go ahead. But I suggest that you tear down all your walls and let God be a wall of protection about you. And he says all of your walls will be called peace.
All right, welcome back to Cloud.Nine on ACT and The Voice. All right, so we're going to go straight into our Let's Chat segment, and this is just a continuation of the phone interview that we had done with, I will jump past the billboard in the essence of time, that we had done with Gad Sinclair. And this is a big issue, and I mean, I've seen what this man has done for the people of TNT through his program Our Dependency, and to know that he's being railroaded, and I say this without apology, how he's being railroaded like this. I made a statement on my page, and people need to support this man. This, of course, is about the film Trafficked, and the person who was hired to produce the movie has since done some things, and here you're going to have Gav give him more information as to what has been done to basically rob him and rape him of his hard work. Take a listen.
Thank you very much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, the weather today didn't permit the technology to work properly, but we decided to do it this way, and we will post this for you to understand. Now, people may ask the question, why am I doing this? And as my Serenity Prayer says, I need to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Well, I've accepted already that we cannot change the mindset of the director of the film that we asked to produce for us, or who we asked to produce the film Traffic for us. I can't change his mindset, we realize, because it's 2017, this has been going on since 2014. But I have to muster the courage so that we can set the record straight with you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, on the money that you spent, which is taxpayers' dollars, on this film, Trafficked. The film that was only shown at the film festival, twice on TV6, and you heard nothing of it after that. Well, the reason for this is that the director of the film decided, and it would have been in the public domain last year or sometime, that the film was his. Now, it's unfortunate that he went along that road because, as you know, Our Dependency have been on the radio for the last 15 years doing these projects. We interviewed female nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. We interviewed some males, but the idea was to do a film. When we had the last interview with the young lady at HMP Drake Hall. Now, when we returned to Trinidad and Tobago, we had to embark on a journey to find a filmmaker. Not having knowledge of the film industry, but we knew Lisa Wickham. We knew of Lisa Wickham. So I decided to approach NADAP, who was the on-air sponsor at the time with the Ministry of Health, to get permission to do this, because as our on-air sponsor, and this is government, they must ensure that what we are about to embark on in line with their mandate. So we met with Mrs. Wendy Ann Watty, who was the director at the time, and she said, okay, when she met with the communications department at the ministry, that we were given the all clear to proceed. The step after that was to look for a filmmaker. We were trying to find a filmmaker. As I said, we only knew about Lisa Wickham, so I contacted Lisa. Lisa agreed, but she had other projects doing. And mind you, what I'm saying to you is I have everything documented so that we can share it with you if need be. Lisa was busy. We waited and we waited, and unfortunately, I thought she was really taking too long because she's a busy person. So then we contacted Mr. Dion Buku. Mr. Buku was leaving the country at the time. So we had to search again. As I said, I don't have the run of the industry, so one day I flipped through the newspaper and I saw this person by the name of Sean Hodgkinson in the newspaper after receiving a prize from the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival in 2013. Deceased Marcia Henville's name was mentioned in the newspaper article. I contacted her, and she said to me, yes, she knew him, and he was a good person to engage. I said, no problem. Marcia introduced me to Sean, and we met at Westmall, the food court at Westmall, him and 4 members of his team. I introduced myself, or rather Marcia introduced me to him, and I went on to explain who I was and the program that we do. Turns out he never heard of us, fine, but I explained our mandate and what we would like to do, and he said, great idea. I asked him, what would be the cost to do a project, a feature film on some of these stories, and I presented to him stories that we would have gotten over the years of our travel. Now, if you look on our Independency Facebook page, or on my Facebook profile page, you would see where I posted a video of him being interviewed. This is after the film was completed. And listen to what he said, which is the truth he was speaking then. However, we embarked now on fundraising. Being the executive producers of the project, because him being the director, we hired him. And the operative word here is hire Sean Hodgkinson to produce a film for us so that we could now take our program to another level, which was visual aid, or teaching tool, if you will. He said $600,000, and we made the rounds trying to get funding, and we got funding from various state agencies and government ministries. The project took some time because the funds took a little time in coming in, but eventually we got $945,000, all of which was handed over to Sean Hodgkinson. We have vouchers, we have receipts, we have signed check vouchers to prove this. As a matter of fact, only 2 checks were made out to us, one from NADAP for $100,000, one from NLCB for $100,000. He has both, I have both check vouchers with his signature receiving $100,000 each from each entity. Excuse me. All the other checks were made out to him on our request for various reasons. I wanted to show transparency. Natasha and I travel a lot, so I didn't want to be out of the country and he didn't have access to the money. But I had to take him to these meetings because nobody knew of this guy, starting with Mrs. Wendy and Watty. We got these funds based on the popularity of Independency. Nobody knew him. As you know, we've been on the air for 15 years. We have 14 awards. So this is not an idle boast. It's a brand that was built from ground up. Because of my problem that I experienced with crack cocaine, time in prison, we came up with this idea for Independency. After we got the funds, the film was completed. Now, Mr. Hodgkinson did a draft contract for us. And I'm going to share that contract with you. And this is where things went haywire. Because we should have had this contract verified and checked by an attorney, but having to raise the funds and the time spent raising the funds, of course, and they producing the film, we neglected to do same, but this was the draft contract that Mr. Hodgkinson sent. And it goes like this. This was sent to us on the 11th of the 12th month, 2013. And it said, hi everyone, I'm also available to meet. I would say we can set up a meeting, the sooner the better. January is around the corner. Perhaps we need to tweak the proposal to indicate what benefits would be accrued the potential sponsor, like opening credits, etc., etc. He went on to apologize to Garth about feeling left out of the pre-casting process. I don't know why we were left out, but he said it was unintentional. I honestly didn't think that you would be interested in seeing people sit around the table and read lines from a script, but I do apologize. This is from Mr. Hodgkinson. Now, as the executive producer, I was supposed to be there, but unfortunately you weren't. I think that once we got things sorted out on the Kings, the actors have learned the lines, we will have a read all together. Now, to get to the point about what we're supposed to benefit from this, again, remember we hired this gentleman. So I'm throwing out these ideas, so please feel free to comment and add or subtract. Garth's credit would be created by. This would be the opening title, and Garth would be listed as executive producer. forgetting Natasha, of course. As Marcia and Sean have partnered with Garth to source funds, that was the idea in the beginning, never turned out like that. He wanted to also be listed as executive producer, which he did. Marcia and Sean will be credited as producer. Fair enough, this would entail the function of organizing logistics, etc., etc. Garth's expertise would be required in any scenes that require a level of authenticity, and Garth will have to work with the art director and director to achieve the look. Now, what was supposed to happen here at the end of this, Quirky Films will provide Independency with 4 final copies of the DVD and be responsible for creating 2 edits and submitting to the film to the local station for airing. Quirky will be responsible for, of course, the subtitles and editing and all of that. All profits that is made from the airing of this film would go to Independency. Of course, this was not honored because he received all the profits that was accrued from this film. Mind you, before we proceeded and before we got the money from National Security, I received an email from the Ministry of National Security on Wednesday, 18th June 2040. And it goes like this. Good afternoon, Mr. Sinclair. The Ministry of National Security would like to clarify a couple of questions concerning your project. And I'll just read the first line to you. Is the project production a commercial venture, and is there an expedition of profit from same? And I think they meant, well, expectation of profit from same. Is it to be marketed for financial gain?
We're going to cut it right there. It goes on for about 12 minutes or thereabout. You can actually check it out on YouTube. Mr. Hutchinson has not really responded in recent times to the recent statement made by Mr. Garth Sinclair. I hope he does, because at the end of the day, I mean, this started off as a beautiful partnership and it got sour very quickly. And I'm really hoping that good sense will prevail and just due is done to those who would have done the work that put into it. And as I said, do not discredit what Garth has done and what he continues to do. Mr. Hodgkinson, whatever it is, let this be resolved amicably. I want to jump to something that here I didn't get to it, guys, but quickly. I don't have, but this is it's in newspapers. It's in the news today, rather. Let us continue to keep the Public Administration and Communications Officer, that's Minister Maxi Coffey, in prayer. He has suffered a stroke, which has kept him in intensive care since last week. Right? Now, we all know what a stroke is. Medical condition, of course, poor blood flow to the brain and results, of course, in the cells dying. They're saying that the prognosis is grim. Right? For the past 9 days, Minister Coffey has been in intensive care at St. Clair Medical. Last week, Wednesday, a release from the Office of the Prime Minister stated that Mr. Coffey had a medical episode the night before, which necessitated his hospitalization. In 2012, he suffered a stroke as well when he was editor of the TNT Mirror. So this is something that has been ongoing. So let us, a source said it's pretty bad. It is advanced. His overall condition is not particularly good. However, they are not very optimistic. So I really want us at this time to keep Mr. Maxi Coffey in our prayers. At the end of the day, you know, I'm just waiting and I'm praying and hoping that I don't see any untoward foolish statements on Facebook surrounding the gentleman. At the end of the day, we all have to, you know, we will come to a point whereby we have to meet our maker, as they say. And this is, we do not know what's happening here, but we continue to pray and hope that, of course, he recovers from the situation. That's why I always say it's not good to speak ill of anyone, because you do not know what will happen to you next. So let us not, all the political ramblers on social media, I don't really want to hear you right now. Let us keep the man in prayer Let us pray that he recovers from this latest episode. Right? We are indeed our brother's keeper. Let's go to our silver lining quickly. I know we are kind of pressed for time, but I may end with this depending on time. Yes, I'll end with it. So again, just quickly, just to wrap this up, the Minister of Communications, Maxi Coffey, he has suffered another stroke, because he had one in 2012. His condition is not particularly good based on a source, and they are not very optimistic. However, we all know that the Bible says, whose report do you believe? Man or God's report. Let us pray that there's a turnaround, and I'm asking very kindly that, those who may not like him for whatever reason, as the case may be, keep your opinions to yourself and do not litter them on social media. Let us push good thoughts towards the man, that he recovers from this latest episode with his health, right? Let us show the true character of who we're supposed to be as human beings, not even about Trinidadians, human beings. And this is a true test of character. Let's see who really has character out there. We're going to wrap things up with just this clip. And now this is, and I'm doing this as a follow-up to Gav, because people tend to not understand what addiction is and what you have to go through to come out of addiction. And that's why I know the hurt where Garth is coming from in terms of all he has done to get this film out, and then, to have to be going through this. And this particular clip is 3 minutes of a 25-minute clip, and I will show you some other time, of what exactly is alcohol addiction. And people tend to take this very lightly, and we don't understand what we're dealing with. So, of course, I've been there. So we're going to close off. We're going to close off with this clip. It's called Demon in a Bottle. I want you to pay close attention. This is about 3 minutes. And another day. Now, I'm going to say this before we close. What's interesting? When I first showed this clip years ago, it was on YouTube. And I remember when we showed it, we got a lot of feedback, people who didn't even know that it was, in terms of the spiritual element of it. 2 days after, that clip was never to be found on YouTube. To this day, you cannot find this video on YouTube. I have to ask myself why, but I have a copy, and they can't get it from me. Run the clip. Have a blessed evening.
For God to win your soul, because Satan wants to hurt God, and every time he causes a soul to be lost, Satan hurts God. Not many can see the spiritual battle that coincides with substance abuse and challenge. My focus here is how alcohol, a mind-altering substance, allows one to be possessed by spirits. Isn't it interesting how some types of alcohol are actually referred to as spirits?
What got into these two grown men to make them carry on in this manner? Are they gone? Have you heard someone who was drunk use that phrase before? Gone? I wonder where they went. Let's look at why some alcohol drinks are referred to as spirits. Here are some findings from my research regarding why some alcohol drinks are referred to as spirits. Alcohol comes from the Arabic alcohol, which was the name of a body-eating spirit. In fact, the English goal comes from the same word. When Arab alchemists ingested alcohol, their senses deadened, and they named the substance according to its body-taking qualities. Knowing this, European speakers who understood its etymology coined the use of the term spirits for alcohol. And I also found this. Distilled alcohol was first noted in Europe among alchemists during the mid-12th century. These alchemists were more involved in medical elixirs than in creating gold from lead. The term spirit is Middle English with its roots in Anglo-French or Latin. It stems from the Anglo-French term spirit, and from the Latin word spiritus, which literally means breath, from the term spirare, meaning to blow, breathe. The term spirits is typically given to those distilled beverages which are low in sugars and which contain a minimum of 35% alcohol by volume. Some of the common types of spirits include gin, vodka, and rum.